This is the Louie Tee Network.
Louie Tee Live. Who else could it be but me, your me, Louie Tee? Welcome to the final installment of the 2017 Divisional Prediction Series that we've been doing over the last 2 weeks. Two-a-days, as I've called it, knocking down two divisions at a time. We went in the order of the teams in the way that they finished the season last year. Patriots won the Super Bowl, so we started with the AFC East. Runner-up in the Super Bowl was the Atlanta Falcons, so we then next tackled the NFC South, and so forth and so forth. We now find ourselves with the final two divisions. The first of the night going to be the NFC West, and then we'll wrap up this series later on tonight with the AFC South. And so first and foremost, I want to thank you for joining me on this program. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie Tee, and once again, thank you for joining the program. If you're out there watching, make sure that you subscribe to the Louie Tee Network. Make sure that you like this video, share this video, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network, and also make sure you follow me on Twitter. The Twitter handle is @InTheLabRoom. All of my social media platforms are down below in the little TV next to me. And so those will be scrolling by as I get into the intro and set the table for this breakdown here. Also want to make mention of a number of different things. The season is almost upon us next week. I have a brand new season of In the Lab Room in terms of all of my different channels. The Louie Tee Network will have a show. I will have a video that will basically preview and give you a little bit of insight as to what will be going on this channel throughout the regular season. It'll be a little bit of a change, and I know some of the things that I will be doing this year will not be happy for some of you. You will not be pleased with some of the subtractions. There are some additions, but for the most part, I'm trying to set myself up into a position where I can really maximize my time this year to set me up for some big things in the future. So you guys just have to bear with me, and I thank you for that. But in any event, we're talking NFC West football tonight on the show, and we want to predict the records for each and every single team in this division. This division was won by the Seattle Seahawks a season ago, and we're going to take a look at this division and see if they can't get back on track, that being this division. This was a down year for this division last year. Seattle was able to win this division, but even the Seahawks didn't have a clean season last year. Russell Wilson dealt with some injuries. They were the only team in the division to hit double-digit wins. They were the only team from this division to make the postseason. They were the only team in this division that looked worthy of a postseason berth. And so, if I'm not mistaken, they may have been the only team in this division to even have a winning record. So, this division, which we've seen over the last 7 years or so, was a powerhouse division where normally two teams from this division was going to the playoffs, whether it be San Francisco or Seattle in the mid-2000s, or it was Arizona and Seattle. But we're going to see if Arizona has a last hurrah in them with Carson Palmer. We're going to see if Seattle can have a huge bounce-back year, even though they made the postseason last year. It didn't feel like a Seattle-esque type of season last year. See if they can bounce back this year. And we'll see if San Francisco and L.A. Can now start to assert themselves in the NFC West and start to rise from the ashes, so to speak, in this division. So we'll start with the team that won this division a season ago, that being the Seattle Seahawks, and we'll talk about what they were able to do this offseason and what our predictions were for them last year and what we foresee for them this season. And we start with their predictions from last year. I felt like this was going to be one of the creme de la creme teams in this division, along with Arizona. I thought both of those teams were going to be really good last year. 12-4 is what I predicted for the Seahawks, 4-2 in the division. And I was slightly off. 10-5-1 for this team. They did have a tie with Arizona on a Sunday night in a brutal football game with no offense. I think the game ended up being 3-3 or or 7-7 or something of that sort. It was a really bad football game. But in any event, they did go 3-2-1 in the division. So this was a team that had some opportunities to do some things, but they never were really the same team. You could point to Marshawn Lynch's departure. You could point to Russell Wilson's injury. You could point to the offensive line. You could point to Earl Thomas going down. I thought that was a key point in their season as well. But at the end of the day, I think as a collective unit, this just wasn't the team that we have come accustomed to. And so you want to see them get back to that. And let's see if some of these offseason acquisitions can help them do exactly that. So they go out and get Oday Aboushi and Luke Jokel along the offensive line. Jokel's going to come in, probably start at one of the guard positions. Oday Aboushi is a guy that will give them some depth at the tackle position, which they're struggling. Their left tackle, George Font, went down in the second preseason game, if I'm not mistaken. He's gone for the season. So they're going to have to do, yet again, some more shuffling around these Seahawks along that offensive line. Eddie Lacy is probably the biggest offseason acquisition for this football team at the running back position because they missed a running back, a physical running back presence last year. We thought that they would have guys like Thomas Rawls step up. The young kid from Notre Dame was going to get some touches, and they were going to be able to supplement and really circumvent the loss of Marshawn Lynch in the run game, but it just never manifested itself. Thomas Rawls was injured for basically the entire year last year, and the Notre Dame rookie seemed to never be healthy either, and so you can never really get into a real rhythm and flow at the running back position, not to mention Russell Wilson was dealing with an injury. This team really was struggling to run the football, and that's their identity as a team that runs the football, establishes a new line of scrimmage. They're the team that really is physical at the point of attack. And on both sides of the football, that's where they've made their hay in this league. And they just didn't do that last year, not to the extent that we're accustomed to seeing from this football team. So Eddie Lacy coming in, I think, is going to give them a little bit of an edge offensively, back to that power ground running game that we've all come accustomed to seeing from the Seattle Seahawks football team. We'll see if that does manifest itself this year with Eddie Lacy now in the backfield. Place kicker Blair Walsh, remember he had the meltdown versus the Seahawks, missed the chip shot field goal in the playoffs as Minnesota ended up losing in the first round a couple of seasons ago. So they're going to give him a shot as they lost their kicker in the offseason. We'll talk about that when we get to some key losses for them. Linebacker Terrence Garvin comes over from the Redskins. He's a really good special teams guy, and I've actually been seeing him running with the ones. I don't know if there's an injury there or what's going on, but Terrence Garvin getting a lot of run with the first-team defense in this preseason. Tremaine Brock is a guy who comes over from San Francisco. I've always liked Tremaine Brock. We'll see if he fits into what the Seattle Seahawks do. Defensively, you know they like long corners that can press and run, and Tremaine Brock kind of fits into that mold, so we'll see if he's able to have an impact on this roster. They also re-signed Luke Wilson, a tight end that I've always liked in Seattle. Deshaun Shedd is another guy that has played quite a bit over the last couple of years due to injuries, and just simply because he was the next guy up. And, you know, that's what they do in Seattle with these corners. They get that second corner opposite of Richard Sherman to play really well. They go out, look for big paydays, they get it, and then the next guy is up. Deshaun Shedd is the next guy up. And he's a guy that's playing all over the place in that secondary. So defensive line, Deion Jordan is a guy that seems to be a perfect fit in Seattle. A guy that is a reclamation project, first-round pick that just flamed out in Miami, couldn't get his life together off the field in terms of substance abuse, and never really got his footing nor traction in the league. And he's a long, active defender. Just seems like a guy that would resurrect his career in Seattle. We'll see if that's in fact the case or not. And linebacker DJ Alexander, whom you traded for with the Chiefs, sending Kevin Louie over to the Kansas City Chiefs in exchange for DJ Alexander, a long, athletic linebacker out of Oregon State. So we'll see what that manifests itself into as well for this Seahawks football team. As we go to the key losses, offensive lineman Gary Gilliam, who you extended a tender to, was able to, or actually extended an offer, a qualifying offer to, was able to get an offer from the 49ers that exceeded what you wanted to pay him. He's now a 49er, so he's gone. Place kicker Steven Hauschka was a really quality kicker for you for a number of years. Thought he had a little bit of a down year last year, missed some kicks, especially that Arizona game. That was one that you just don't see him miss as many kicks as he did last year, and so Seahawks parted ways with him. Marshawn Lynch, formerly gone, and remember he wasn't with this team last year as he quote unquote retired, but this year he has formally been traded to the Oakland Raiders, and so he's on this list. And defensive lineman Brandon Williams moves on from this football team. He is now an Indianapolis Colt. So, and those are your key losses for this Seahawks football team as they look to try to repeat as NFC West champions. Speaking of which, let's get to their schedule and see if we can carve out some wins and losses for them in the 2017 season. Week 1 at Green Bay. That's going to be a hell of a football game. One that I do not expect the Seahawks to win, but it should be a fun game nonetheless. Those two teams seem to always play some good competitive football, but generally speaking, it seems like Green Bay is always home in this matchup, and in the regular season, that is. And usually when they're at home, they find a way to beat this Seattle Seahawks team, and I look for that to be the case in Week 1. You then come home the following week and get the San Francisco 49ers, and that's where you'll get your first win of the season to get back to 500 at 1-1 on the season. The following week, you go on the road and take on the Tennessee Titans. This is a young Titans football team that I really, really like, and I think of all the young teams that everyone's really talking about and expecting big things from, that being the Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are the one team in this group that I see is really being ready to take that next step. They can run the football, and I think that's why I really like them, is their ability to be able to run the football effectively and do some things off of that run. And I like this spot for the Tennessee Titans, actually. Seattle's very capable of going on the road and winning that football game. And in past years, they probably would have went on the road and won this game. But something tells me that Tennessee's going to be good this season. And I'm drinking the Tennessee Titans punch. And I think they can get that one at the house there. Then you come home the following week, Sunday Night Football, Indianapolis Colts at the crib. I think one of the worst places for any team in this league to have to play and endure is in Seattle on primetime television in a night game. It's just brutal. The crowd is so loud and it's so amped, and it's hard enough as it is to play in Seattle, period. Add to the fact that it's a primetime game at night. I just find it hard to believe that Indianapolis is going to be able to go in there and win. I'll take the Seahawks in that one. At Los Angeles, for some reason, and I can't explain it, this Seattle Seahawks team, and I think I know what it is, it's their ability to have team speed and really be able to chase Russell Wilson around the field. But for some reason, you can't beat the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles. And really, they don't give a damn where the game is. They'll come to Seattle and beat you. They'll beat you in St. Louis, now in Los Angeles. It doesn't really matter, but this Rams team, they just know how to play Russell Wilson and this Seattle Seahawks team. And so in Los Angeles, I'm giving the edge to the Rams as you go into the bye at 2-3. You come out of the bye, and there's a road contest versus the Giants. I don't know if I love that matchup for you at all. The Giants are fully capable, and I think what's going to happen in that game is that the Giants are going to neutralize Russell Wilson, keep him in the pocket, and similar to what the Rams do to him, I think the Giants are going to be able to do the same and really stymie that Seattle Seahawks offense and do just enough. Eli does some nonsense, but I think they'll be able to do just enough. I watched them really reduce offenses to little to nothing, next to nothing last year, and I think they could do the same in that game. I'll give the edge to the Giants in that game. Then you come home for 2 straight, the first of which is versus the Houston Texans, a game that I fully expect you to win. And then you have the Redskins the following week, another game that I fully expect you to win. And so you bounce back after 2 straight losses. Something that you did not suffer a season ago was 2 straight losses. You bounce back after 2 straight losses with 2 straight wins to get back to 500 on the season. Or a matter of fact, to go over 500 on the season. Wait. Nope, back to 500, like I said, at 4-4. Before going on a Thursday night game at Arizona on the road. That should be a tough one there. I really think you have no issues going to Arizona, much like Arizona having no issues coming to Seattle and winning anymore after it seemed like they couldn't win in Seattle for quite some time. I don't think you have a problem going into Seattle and or Arizona on a Thursday night and winning that ball game. And so I see you going there and beating Arizona this year in Arizona. Last year you tied with them. The year before that you beat them in Arizona. I think you can go to Arizona and win that game. Then you get the Atlanta Falcons, and this is a rematch of last year's epic game in Seattle, one that you were able to pull out. Probably should have lost that game, but you found a way to win late stages, generating turnovers, and got away with the pass interference that was not called late in that game. I think the Falcons will have revenge on their minds, but I like you in that football game there at home to win. And again, primetime Monday night, it's such a tough environment for anyone to go in and win. And I just don't see the Atlanta Falcons being able to do that either. So that's 4 straight Seahawks getting hot at the right time. You're at San Francisco. That's a game that I expect you to find a way to win. And I'm going to tell you what, would not shock me in the least if you didn't win that football game. San Francisco, even when they weren't good last year, pushed you to the limit in the final game of the season. You usually struggle with the 49ers in San Francisco, but I think you'll find a way to get that done. Sunday night football, yet again, another home Seattle Seahawks primetime matchup. I just don't like primetime games in Seattle at night for the opposition. It's just a tough ask of anyone to go in there and try to defeat the Seahawks and the 12th man. I just don't see it happening, not on the primetime stage. Seahawks really take care of business when they're on primetime at home. And even on the road, remember last year going to New England and winning. I just love Seattle in primetime situations. They seem to find a way to get it done. And so after starting the season off 2-3, or 2-4 actually, you've now rallied off 6 straight wins as you find yourself going to Jacksonville in week number 14. And of course, that's another W there. So continuing to stockpile these wins of the Seattle Seahawks after a rough start to the season. You go and you get the Rams at home, and I don't expect the Rams to sweep you in this season. They've already gotten you once at home. I expect you to continue your hot football and win that game. Then you're at Dallas. This is where your winning streak finally comes to an end. Unfortunately, you're not able on Christmas Eve to get the W on the road versus Dallas before going home for the final game of the season against the Arizona Cardinals, a team that I think you'll be able to sweep in 2017. So when it's all said and done, after a rough start of 2-4, Seattle Seahawks roll off 4, 6, 8 straight and 9 out of their last 10 to get to 11-5 on the season. They go 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1 in the division en route to an 11-5 record on the season. So let's get out the old trusty board here, tally up, write this down. Seattle 11-5, 5-1 in the division. Let's get to your comments. Remember, if you're out there and you're watching and you want your voice to be heard, use the hashtag Louie Tee Live. Also, if you happen to be on Twitter, and again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, Twitter is the equivalent of a fast pass at an amusement park. Instead of standing in line for an hour and 15 minutes to get on your favorite ride, you can just get a fast pass and cut in front of the line and spend 3 seconds in line and get on the ride. If you want your comment read in a hurry, go to Twitter, add in the Lab Room, use the hashtag Louie Tee Live. If you want to stand in line and you don't mind standing in line, just use the hashtag Louie Tee Live in the comment section of the video. So, with that being said, I'll check Twitter quickly, but generally there's nothing there. And see what we got. Go ahead and like and retweet these tweets quickly. All right, so let's jump into your comments. What's going on, Sean Mack? The Cubone says, what's up? Looking forward to this season for everyone in the West. As Cubone, my man Cubone is a Los Angeles Rams fan. Jay Moose says, hey, are you going to do a Soul Survivor pool this year? I need some revenge, revenge, revenge. Not this year. It will be back next year. I'm setting up a very competitive setup for next year. It's going to be crazy. You guys are going to love it, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with it next year as well as you will. So this year, I'm kind of trimming off the fat to really do it up big next season. So no Survivor pool this year, unfortunately. Andrew Kim says, Seahawks trying to trade Jermaine Kearse. They got some talent at receiver and running back. Surprised Rawls hasn't been in trade talks. And Chris Carson and Mike Davis playing well. Chris Carson is taking full advantage of his opportunity with all these injuries and them basically not wanting to overwork Eddie Lacy. Chris Carson, I think, has taken the most advantage of this situation. I didn't expect him to make the team as a 7th-round pick out of Oak State. I looked at him as a regular back, a guy that had some size and a little bit of power and a little bit of speed, but he didn't seem shifty enough to me. I didn't see him as a guy that was going to make this roster, but lo and behold, something that the Seahawks consistently struggle with is injuries at the running back position. And because of the injuries, he's gotten an opportunity and he's made the most of it. And not only is he going to make this roster, I think he's going to touch the football quite a bit in the upcoming season. We'll see. But as far as Jermaine Kearse is concerned, he fits right in. And we do this. We disrespect the Seahawks. And I'm guilty of it too. We disrespect the Seahawks receivers because none of these guys stand out. Even though Doug Baldwin seems to put up gaudy numbers year in and year out, he still doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And I'm guilty of that. I'm just as guilty as the next man. But it just seems like they all fit into the same type of category. And so Kearse did offer them a little bit of size at the receiver position, something that the other guys just don't. You know, whether you're talking about P. Rich and Paul Richardson, or you're talking about Tyler Lockett, or you're talking about Doug Baldwin. All of these guys are 6 feet, 6'1", or you know, smaller, where Kearse was a 6'3", 6'4" type of receiver. But in any event, they probably feel like they have enough guys and enough talent at receiver where he might be expendable. We'll see. I don't know if they'll be able to move him or not. Normally when you hear a team throwing a name around in trade talks, it's because they're going to release that player. Just like we heard with Joe Hayden yesterday. Oh, the Browns shopping Joe Hayden, and what happened today? Joe Hayden gets released. Generally, teams throw that out there because they want to get something for a player before they ultimately have to cut that player. And, you know, we're coming down to those 53-man roster cuts after tomorrow in the Thursday game where everybody's going to be playing. You go from 90 to 53, and Jermaine Kearse may be a guy that's in danger of not making that roster. Maybe that's why they're trying to move him. I don't know the answer to that, but well, we'll see. Vincent Coe says, sup? Do you think Russell Wilson will have a much better year than last year? He looked good in the preseason games to me. I actually think he will be much better this year. I watched him in that in 2 preseason games actually this year. I watched him in week 2 of the preseason versus Minnesota. I thought he was phenomenal in that game. And I watched him against Kansas City. I thought he was good in that game. I didn't think he was great in that game, but I thought he was really good in that game. So I think he's been sharp, and you can tell that he's healthy, and that's big for him because when he's at his best is when he's able to get out of the pocket and create. And there were a couple of plays against Minnesota and even in the Kansas City preseason game where he was able to extend plays and throw some darts down the field. I mean, some absolute dimes as only Russell Wilson can after extending a play and looking like he was going to be sacked and playing that backyard football type of game that he's able to do. When he can do that, he's at his best and he's his most dangerous, and that Seahawks offense is at its most dangerous as well. What up, Cloud? Sean Mack says, I have Seattle going 11-5 this season, as do I. Cloud says, I think Seattle defense will regress, but I think the offense will progress only if that line can protect Wilson. We'll see. The protection for him has always been spotty and shoddy at best, but it's his mobility that's going to allow that offensive line to get away with not being able to protect at maximum efficiency. Even if they're not getting the job done at the level you would like, his ability to run and create and extend, and his health, more importantly, is what's going to allow that offensive line to get away with some shoddy play potentially. Sean Mack says, nah, bro, I think Seattle finally sweeps the season against the Rams. L.A. Rams just stink. Their defense is overrated and they will regress this year. Just my opinion. It's possible, and the fact that Aaron Donald never, ever trust a man with two first names is holding out right now. He'll be back because I don't think he is bold enough to sit out and start missing game checks. But the fact that he's not there, it's really going to hurt their defense because he's the anchor, he's the catalyst, he's the engine that really makes that whole defense go. And so without him being in the lineup, there's no one to really fear up front for them. So if he returns, I think it changes things for them dramatically up front. And we'll see about that because it doesn't really matter. Seems like when they play Seattle, they find a way to win, especially when they're at home, whether it's 2 years ago in that overtime classic when Pete Carroll decided to kick onside and they didn't recover, or last year's game where it was like 13-10 or 16-13 and they beat Seattle, or 9. It was 9-3, I think, in that game. They beat Seattle 9-3. So they just find a way to get it done versus them. I can't really explain it. I don't think Seattle Seahawks fans can explain that. In any event, Louie Production says there's no way they'll be 2-3 at their bye and 0-3 on the road already, man. I tell you what, that's been their biggest problem is they get it done at home. They were 7-1 at home last year, but they were 3-4-1 on the road. Okay, they struggled on the road. This is a team that struggles on the road. Period. End of discussion. In the division, they struggle on the road. Out of the division, they struggle on the road. And so we'll see if they can get it done on the road this year. But 2-3 is what I have them at that bye. Obviously, that Tennessee game, very winnable. And that's the difference between them starting 0-3 on the road and 2-3 overall when getting to their bye, or going 3-2 in the first 5 and being 1-2 on the road. We'll see. I think they can get that win against Tennessee, but I'm not giving it to them. I like Tennessee this year, and so I think they can win that football game. Athletically gifted defenses really give Russell Wilson some trouble, and that Tennessee Titans defense can run. They can move. Damon Brown says, I got Seattle at 11-5, losses to the Titans, Rams, Falcons, Cowboys, and Cardinals. So he's got them at 11-5 as well. Different way of getting to 11-5, different losses. He says, how is Green Bay going to beat Seattle with no running game? Because we all know the Hawks shut down the passing game. Well, Green Bay's never really been able to run the football versus Seattle, but they always find a way to beat Seattle, and that's because they have Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers gets the job done generally speaking. So as long as the defense doesn't crap the bed, wet the bed, they'll be able to find a way to get it done at home versus the Green Bay against the Seattle Seahawks. That's just my opinion there. Cloud says, bold prediction, the Eagles will go to Seattle and upset them. Okay, we'll see about that. You had a chance to do it last year when they were all types of banged up and you couldn't get it done. But again, rookie quarterback, first-year head coach. I know. Blackbird Blitz says, why would Atlanta need revenge versus Seattle? Last time I checked, we beat them in the playoffs last year. True, you beat them in the playoffs, but you didn't beat them in Seattle. It's different when you have to go to Seattle and win versus beating them in the comfy confines of your own stadium. It's a totally different animal out in Seattle, and you know that. They play a different brand of football when they're at home. Like I said, they were 7-1 at home last year. They struggled on the road, and you were able to take care of business at home. It's a different animal going to Seattle versus having to play Seattle in your own building. So that's the only reason I say that. But obviously, you were able to get some get back in the playoffs when it mattered most. But this is the regular season here, and this is in Seattle. And I think most players on that roster are going to remember what happened the last time you went to Seattle and want to get that football game. Damon Brown, we already read that comment. Protect428 says, yo, the Seahawks are going to obliterate the NFC West. The other teams are trash compared to them, point blank, period. Which is why I got them going 5-1 within the division. So I think they're going to clean up the division for the most part as well. So we'll see. You know, things happen. You know, family business is totally different. You think you know, you have no idea when it comes to family members. Protect428 says he's got the Hawks going 12-4, Cardinals 7-9, Rams 5-11, and 49ers 3-13. It's curtains for those bums, he says. Damon Brown says, will Jimmy Graham have a comeback year or no? I just never feel like he fits in Seattle for some reason. He's been so inconsistent. One game he'll have 7 catches for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the next 2 weeks he'll have a combined 7 catches for 47 yards and no touchdowns. And then the next 2 games he'll have 5 and 6 catches respectively for 92 and 102 yards and a touchdown in both games. And you're like, why can't you do that every week? You just never get a feel for Jimmy Graham and what he's going to do, unlike when he was in New Orleans and you knew he was going to eat every single game. It just hasn't been the case. We'll see. I think the tight end is supposed to dominate in that Seahawks offense because of Russell Wilson and his ability to extend plays, because of their ability to run the football generally when they are good, and play action fake and being able to suck linebackers up and run seam routes. The tight end is supposed to eat in this offense. So I'd like to think that he'd be able to have a good season if he can stay healthy, but we'll see. Protect428 says, Seahawks Packers NFC Championship rematch. Mark my words, bro. Okay. Sean Mack says, Hayden is now with Pittsburgh. Took less than 12 hours for Joe to decide that he wanted some revenge for Saucy doing him dirty by cutting him. Should have kept him. They wanted him to take a pay cut. He said, no way, no thanks. And they got rid of him. And I heard the first team that was going to step up to the plate because they need help at corner was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they did exactly that. And so, yeah, you know, a lot of times when a player feels wronged by a team, the first teams that he's going to look at are the teams in the division, and he's going to look for some get back, a la Deshaun Jackson and the Eagles and him signing with the Redskins. You always look to try to get revenge against the team that you felt like wronged you. So that's a case of that, and he went to the right team because the Steelers are probably the cream of the crop in that division. Protect428 says 8-0 at home, 4-4 on the road. That's how he gets to 12-4 for the Seahawks this year. Ash 6 says Seahawks 11-5, Cardinals 10-6, Rams 6-10, Niners 4-12. Snake Jr. says, how do you feel about Redskins playing the Rams with us having McVay now? We'll talk about that here in a second when we get to the Rams and their breakdown. Protect428 says, bro, would you trade Jimmy Graham in the 2018 offseason if he has another down season? I think they would explore that, definitely. But then what's his trade value at that point? That's the question you got to ask. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Jimmy Graham in 2017 and if he's able to emerge as the guy that we've come to know and love in New Orleans that hasn't really found his footing, so to speak, in Seattle. He's been good. He just hasn't been great, and he was great in Seattle. And we think he has the ability and potential to be the same type of player in Seattle if he can stay healthy and just be consistent. So with that being said, let's go to the next team in this division, and that is none other than the Arizona Cardinals. And this is a team that really disappointed me last year, disappointed overall last season, and I thought they would be 12-4. So that just goes to show you just how much confidence I had in the Arizona Cardinals and their ability to get back. I looked at David Johnson, I looked at Larry Fitzgerald and Michael Floyd and all of those guys that, you know, you thought John Brown and all of the speed that they had at receiver, and Carson Palmer was really starting to get it with Bruce Arians, and you said, okay, they're figuring some things out, and defensively they can just stay healthy and find a corner opposite of Pat P. They're going to be just fine, but they weren't. And they went 7-8-1 last year. I thought they would be 4-2 in the division. They went 4-1-1, so they weren't that far off in the division. They feasted off the division is what they did. You know, 4 of their 7 wins on the season came in the division, and one of those was an improbable victory on the road versus Seattle in a game that featured some back and forth at the very end of that game. It was a really fun contest to watch, and that was the only loss, the lone loss for Seattle in Seattle last season. So this is a team that is capable when they're playing and firing on all cylinders, but I have my reservations about the Arizona Cardinals, and it starts at the quarterback position with Carson Palmer. I think he's on his last legs, and I don't really trust him, and I never trusted him in any big game. As we saw the last time they were in the playoffs, he was god-awful and has been throughout his career, and so I don't know if I trust Carson Palmer, and I don't think they have anybody behind him if something were to happen to him. Obviously, they get Blaine Gabbert, and let's take a look at their offseason acquisitions to start. So they get Carlos Dansby and Jarvis Jones. Seems like Carlos Dansby is on the Cardinals team for the 77th time in his career. And damn, how old is Carlos Dansby anyway? I mean, generally you don't see linebackers play that long in the NFL. He's got to be in year number 13 or 14. I mean, this has got to be like his 3rd stint with the Arizona Cardinals. And he's still playing at a relatively high level. That's why he keeps getting contracts with various teams. And then Jarvis Jones coming over from Pittsburgh, and they're hoping to get the best out of him. You know, sometimes you get drafted in the 1st round, and there's a lot of expectations. You don't meet them, and there's a lot of pressure, and it gets to you, and you succumb to it. You get a new chance, new environment, second opportunity to prove that you can play in this league at a high level, and maybe Jarvis Jones takes advantage of that in Arizona. Defensive backs, Antoine Bethea comes over from San Francisco last year, and so you get this guy to come in, and that's some much needed depth at the safety position. Obviously you got Budda Baker, obviously you have Tyrann Mathieu, but we don't know if Tyrann Mathieu can stay healthy. He hasn't been able to do so over the last 2 or 3 seasons, so you just need an insurance policy, and I think Antoine Bethea is definitely a good guy to have on your roster there. And you lose 2 safeties in DJ Swearinger and Tony Jefferson, so you need some depth there anyhow. Place kicker Phil Dawson comes over, and that was one of your biggest problems last year, was in the field goal kicking game. Obviously, you had some problems. It started in week 1 versus the Patriots in a game that you probably should have won. You just struggled, and we thought that Chandler Catanzaro would be better. I think he set a record for most field goals made to start a career or something of that effect. I mean, he was really good early on in his career, but he struggled last year. And so you just go with a trustworthy veteran and fill the boot, and he's going to come over and provide you with that at the field goal kicking position. Quarterback Blaine Gabbert looked really good in the Hall of Fame game. I haven't seen him since. Really haven't seen the Cardinals in the preseason that much. So maybe that's part of the reason why I'm not that high on them, is because I haven't really watched them this preseason. But I did see them in the Hall of Fame game, and again, not much can be drawn from that. The only thing that I did take from that game was Blaine Gabbert looked awfully good, which begs the question, is Bruce Arians really a quarterback whisperer? Because if you can get Blaine Gabbert to play at a high level like that, that speaks volumes for his ability to work with quarterbacks. And I think you need to upgrade your backup quarterback situation. I'm not the biggest Drew Stanton fan anyway, so why not give Blaine Gabbert a shot? You re-signed tight end Jermaine Gresham to a long-term deal. I've always liked Jermaine Gresham. He dealt with some injuries, and that's what got him ousted out of Cincinnati, and I think he found a nice home in Arizona. A.Q. Shipley is back, more depth up front along the offensive line. Running backs Chris Johnson and Andre Ellington. Andre Ellie are back. I thought Andre Ellie's time in Arizona was done, but I was wrong. For some reason, he doesn't seem to get into the game until the fourth quarter. So I just thought his time in Arizona was finished, but I was wrong. Frosty Rucker is going to re-up with this football team. He'll be back in Arizona along the defensive line. And Chandler Jones, which we all saw this coming. You don't trade for a guy and give up what you gave up to get him just to let him walk. And so Chandler Jones is back in Arizona on a long-term deal as well. Key losses, of course, Calais Campbell is the biggest name of note. He was a veteran that really got it done for them along that defensive line, and he's now in Jacksonville. Alex Okafor and Kevin Minter at the linebacker position. Both of those guys have moved on. DBs Tony Jefferson and DJ Swearinger, as I mentioned before when I talked about Antoine Bethea coming on board. Those two have found new homes as starting safeties elsewhere. And Earl Watford is gone, and he is going to be starting elsewhere in 2017. So definitely some holes left by those guys. We'll see how well the Arizona Cardinals are able to fill those voids with those acquisitions and, of course, what they were able to do in the draft. Let's get to their schedule, see if we can make sense of this 2017 season for the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to start in week 1 at Detroit. That's not a game that I love for this Cardinals team. It's definitely a game that they could go on the road and win. The Detroit Lions are not gangbusters, but I think they'll play well enough. Stafford with the new deal. I think they'll play well enough to get it done at home. And so Cardinals get off to an 0-1 start. And you start the first 2 games of the season on the road. The second game is interesting. Here's why. Andrew Luck's not going to start the regular season. He won't be ready for week 1. The question then begs, will he be ready for week 2? And even if he is ready for week 2, having not performed in any OTAs, no mini camps, no training camp, no preseason, just how sharp can Andrew Luck be coming off of the injury table onto the football field? I mean, how good could he be anyway, right? Even if Andrew Luck plays, and I don't think he will play, but even if he does play in week 2, I can't imagine him being sharp enough to lead his team to a victory. I'll take the Arizona Cardinals on the road in a game that I probably otherwise would take Arizona to win, or Indianapolis to win at home. But nonetheless, you get that one done. Then you get the Dallas Cowboys on a Monday night at home, which that's going to be a fun environment there. And that's such a tough place to play. Early in the season, no Ezekiel Elliott. I think that's the game you get. Then you have San Francisco at the crib. And I don't see why you can't take care of business there to run your record to 3-1 to start the season. Then you got a game on the road versus the Philadelphia Eagles, against an Eagles team that I think will be game and that will be up to the task of protecting their home turf versus this Cardinals football team. So I think you take an L there. Then you're home for Tampa. That's a game that I could easily see you losing. But I'm not high on the Buccaneers this particular season. I think a lot of people are. I, however, am not. And so I think you get that one at the crib. Then you're at the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams, for me, are an enigma. I don't quite know what to expect. I think I do, but I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to think about your history versus the Rams. You generally find ways to beat them. It's not always pretty, but it's usually gritty and it's a dub. I think Arizona, that game's in London, man. Arizona's going to beat them in London. They should beat them in London. If that game were in Los Angeles, I might take a long, hard look. It's in London. They should win that game. Then you get your bye week. So you go into the bye week at 5-2. At San Francisco, off the bye week. I think the 49ers get you here. I really do. Then you got Seattle, primetime, Thursday night football. And I told you that I think Seattle's going to sweep you this year. I just do. And so they have no problems coming in your house. For some reason, they don't have any problems going in your house and finding a way to get it done, even though they didn't get it done last year. It was a tie. They have no problems going into your house and getting it done. And you have no problems going into their house and getting it done. But I don't see you doing that this year because it's the last game of the season. At Houston, boy, I don't like that matchup at all. I think their defensive line can get after Carson Palmer, really make him uncomfortable. If David Johnson can't get off and really hurt them, I think that's a game that the Texans will find a way to win at home. Then you have the Jaguars at the crib. That's one you got to go get. And so you were on a 3-game losing streak. That'll snap your 3-game skid there, get you back on track. Home for the Rams. You're going to sweep the Rams. Then you're home for the Titans. I actually see the Titans coming in there and beating you guys. I really do. This is the type of game where Marcus Mariota just shows up like he did against New Orleans in his rookie season and just balls out of control. And you just don't expect it. You don't see it coming, but it does happen, and they get the W. At the Redskins, that's a game I don't see you getting either. Very possible, and the Redskins at that point of the season could possibly stink. So, you know, these late season games, you just don't know the temperament of the team you're playing against. The Redskins are good. I think that's a game the Redskins find a way to win. If the Redskins stink, then that's a game that you could easily go in there and win. Then you're home for the Giants. That is definitely a game that you can win, but that's definitely a game you could lose as well. I think we determined that the Giants were going to lose that game. I'm trying to think. On the road in Arizona. Give you the W. I don't remember what I did for the Giants, but I wouldn't be shocked if I gave the Giants the win there. But in any event, if anybody remembers, let me know. But you don't win against Seattle. I told you get swept by the Seahawks. And so after a great start to the season at 5-2, after the bye, things go down south for you quickly. And you end up, after starting the season 5-2, come out of the bye and you drop the next 5 out of 7 games. And 6 out of the final 9. As it looks like you're 8-8 on the season. And you are. And that's right around what I see the Cardinals being anyway. An 8-8 ball club. I can't imagine them getting back to what they once were as a double-digit winning team. vying for NFC supremacy. I think those days have passed them by, and I don't trust Carson Palmer at all. To stay healthy, 1, and 2, to just be a consistently good quarterback for them. Arizona, 8-8. And the record in the division, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-2, 3-3 for the Arizona Cardinals in 2017. So 8-8 and 3-3 in the division. Let's see what you guys have to say about the Arizona Cardinals and their upcoming season. We'll look at Twitter first. Nothing there. So let's get to your comments. See where we left off. Right here. So Sean Mack says Hayden would have been better off going to Green Bay. Easier road to the Super Bowl than going through the Pats. I don't think he really cares about easier road to the Super Bowl. I think there was a revenge factor, and I think he respects the Steelers organization. You know, he knows what that division is all about. He knows what the Steelers are all about. And I think he just felt more comfortable with the Steelers than he did Green Bay. Cloud says, this is the Arizona Cardinals last year to try to win now, which I don't think they will happen. I think they will regress and go rebuild mode after this season. And I think that's going to be the case because they don't have a quarterback. You know, and that's why I thought they would draft one this year, and they didn't. And so, and Carson Palmer's already got 1 foot out the door, which I hate when someone's contemplating retirement very heavily, because normally when you're thinking about it that hard, you're already halfway out the door. Sean Mack says, I got the Cardinals going 5-11. Sorry, BE. Arizona can't depend on just DJ. Palmer is overrated now, and the defense is going to really regress, maybe more than any other team in the NFL, just my opinion. Sean Mack says, Dansby still doing quite well. Wish my Browns still had him playing middle linebacker. Just imagine Kirksey, Collins, Dansby at linebacker. Talk about ballers, bro. I know. Dansby, for some reason, man, it's like this dude doesn't age or something. Talking about Aaron Rodgers and his stash. You know, every now and again, Rodgers will go back to that stash. And he also said that Colin Kaepernick should be playing in the league this year. So, you know, A-Rod out there standing up for what he believes in, man. Alex says, you gave the Giants the L against the Cards, so you got it right here. Awesome. I thought I did, but I wasn't sure. Q-Bone says, I've got Seattle winning the division, as do I. Damon Brown says, I got the Cardinals at 4-12. Ouch. I don't think they're going to be good this year, but I don't think they're going to be terrible. Sean Mack says 5-11. Damon Brown says 4-12. He says wins against the Colts, 49ers, they sweep them, and the Jags. I'm predicting Carson Palmer to have that Peyton Manning performance drop off. So he's thinking he's going to goddamn go off the cliff like Peyton Manning did in his final year. Ugh. We'll see. Snake Jr. says, cool, I've been watching your channel for the last couple of years. Like your NFL draft grades. It gives me a good feel on how about the rookies, how to feel about the rookies. You can put him on the board. Rams. Hey, I appreciate that, Snake. Protect428 says, I completely agree, bro. They are a mediocre team. 8-8 sounds perfect. And that's what I see them as. Like with DJ on their team, they're going to find a way to win some games just because of how good he is, and their defense isn't terrible. They're going to find a way to win some games, but I don't think they're going to beat the really good teams around the league. And they may lose a couple of games that they have no business losing either. Alex says, do you think Robert Nkemdiche will put it together this year? I saw glimpses from him. I know he's already dealing with a minor nagging injury. He's got to stay healthy if he wants to perform at a high level. That's number one. But in that Hall of Fame game, he looked like a guy that was ready to explode. So I think he can. We'll see. Snake Jr. says, Carr's not going to sweep the Rams. Louie, come on, bro. I don't know, man. I don't know if they're going to sweep the Rams or not. I don't think they're going to sweep them either, but I'm not giving the Rams anything. You know, I don't love the whole situation with Aaron Donald and the way that's playing out right now. First year of Sean McVay looks good on paper, but then I watch him against the Chargers, and they get totally outclassed in that game, and I think that's what's going to end up happening to them. So we'll see. It's going to be a learning curve. It's going to be a steady climb to prominence for the Rams. It's not going to happen overnight. Protect428 says Carson Palmer is trash. Wow. I won't go that far to call the man trash, but I know he's not good in big game situations for sure. Rams all day 95. He says we're going to at least beat the Cardinals. And that may be true. We'll see. The Cubone says Arizona going 7-9. Protect428 says Seattle wins this division by 4 games, and Arizona has a great defense, but bro, Palmer is effing trash. Also, I can't trust the line or the wide receiver core at all except Larry. I think they got some talent at receiver. They just got to stay healthy, man. That's been their biggest bugaboo at receiver. It's just staying healthy. We'll see. They like the kid that they got out of Grambling. They think he's going to be a stud eventually. And, of course, they still got John Brown, and they got the other fast dude that they got out of UAB. So they got some stuff, man. And I think Jerron Brown might still be hanging around, man. Brown. Hey, they got some stuff. We'll see. But in any event, we move on to the next team in this division, the Los Angeles Rams. Let's take a look at what they did last year and what they've done this year. So I predicted 7-9. I was really disappointed with them. You know, the whole Jeff Fisher thing kind of blew up. I was never a Jeff Fisher fan. And I could easily see how that whole thing could unravel, and it did. But 4-12, I didn't quite see that. I thought maybe, okay, even if they're not 7-9, they're 6-10, but they're not 4-12. I had them going 3-3 in the division. They ended up 2-4 in the division. So a lot of changes, wholesale changes for this Rams organization. A lot of things going to be different for them. And I'm anxious to see how it goes for them. I'm actually rooting for them because, of course, Sean McVay is a guy that I admire coming from Washington, and I think he's brilliant at what he does. And so I'm a huge Wade Phillips fan. I think wherever he goes, great defense follows, and I think a lot of people are forgetting about that. So they're going to have a chance in a ton of ball games. I just think that offensively they're still going to be a tad bit behind just because they don't have the time to gel. Sammy Watkins is going to be your number 1 receiver. He hasn't been in camp with you. He just got there. It's hard for him to just jump in and pick everything up. And, oh, by the way, he's a guy that doesn't stay healthy. So I just think it's going to be a work in progress for this Rams offense when it's all said and done. But in any event, let's take a look at their offseason acquisitions, shall we? Head coach Sean McVay and defensive coordinator Wade Phillips start the list, and I think those are the 2 biggest acquisitions for this team in the offseason. Offensively, you're going to be light years better than you have been under Jeff Fisher. And defensively, Wade Phillips is going to come in, and he's going to have these boys playing football. So right off the bat, you're competitive because of those 2 guys right there. Connor Barwin comes in over from the Philadelphia Eagles. Basically, he's going to be your new Chris Long. And even though Chris Long wasn't on the roster last year, he's going to fill that type of role for you as a veteran defensive end. Offensive lineman Andrew Whitworth and John Sullivan come over, and Whitworth's impact can't be understated. It can't be overstated, okay? This guy is huge because your left tackle position has been a mess. You thought Greg Robinson was going to be the answer. He wasn't. And Roger Saffold was supposed to be a guy that maybe would be able to do it. He couldn't. And so it's been bad at left tackle for you for quite some time. Andrew Whitworth is up there in age, but he's still one of the best in the business. And I think it's a 3-year deal. And I think for at least 2 of those years, he's going to be A1 for you at left tackle. John Sullivan is going to come over and give you some depth along the offensive line. Wide receivers Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods come over from Buffalo. So you basically take the 2 starting receivers from the Bills and put them on your roster. And so we'll see how that goes. You've also drafted a ton of receivers, Cooper Kupp, the kid from Texas A&M. So there's a ton of receivers that you got on this roster, not to mention Tavon Austin still over there. There's a lot of talent there. It's just a question of how fast does it develop, and how fast does Jared Goff develop in Sean McVay's offense. Nikel Roby-Coleman is a guy that I liked from the Buffalo Bills. Again, a lot of Buffalo Bills store shopping over here, but that's a guy that I really liked. He's now a Ram. And then they re-signed Tremaine Johnson, of course, franchise tag. Still weren't able to get a long-term deal established there. And really, it's just because you don't trust him. He hasn't stayed healthy, and he hasn't proved that he's a lockdown number one corner since the departure of Janoris Jenkins. So now the question is, all right, without having Janoris Jenkins, or as I learned yesterday, the jackrabbit opposite of you, are you really that guy? They still don't know, and so they're unwilling to commit. And finally, place kicker Greg Zuerlein. Greg the Boot was fun for. He's a guy he's got a huge leg, and he's really comforting to have on your football team. But now I want to see what he kicks like outdoors. It's easy to boom one from 59 inside. Now let's see what you do outside. So I'll be watching Greg Zuerlein this year, or young Jeezy, to see what he does. Key losses: Kenny Britt gone, and he was your de facto number one, even though I don't think he's a number one in this league. He was your de facto number one, so he moves on to Cleveland. Offensive lineman Tim Barnes is a guy that played for you well sometimes not so well, so I don't know if you're really going to miss him. Defensive lineman Eugene Sims. That's a guy that I think was really good depth for you along the defensive line. He's now gone. Defensive backs, E.J. Gaines and T.J. McDonald. Remember, you traded Gaines away for Samuel Watkins. So that's a guy that is no longer on your roster. And T.J. McDonald is gone, as well as it seems like each and every single year the Rams continue to lose talented secondary members. One year it's Janoris Jenkins and Rodney McLeod. The next year it's E.J. Gaines and T.J. McDonald. So we'll see if they can continue to replenish what was once one of the most talented secondaries in all of football. Greg Robinson, I know most Rams fans are like, he's not a key loss. I just put him up there anyway just to get Rams fans motivated and worked up. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are saying Greg Robinson is not a key loss. He stinks. Get him out of here. And rightfully so. We'll see what he does in Detroit. He much like I said with Jarvis Jones with the Cardinals, he may be one of those guys, first-round pick, a lot of pressure, doesn't live up to it. He feels the pressure, needs a new start, gets a fresh opportunity, and we'll see what he does with it in Detroit. Running back Benny Cunningham, which this guy was a Swiss Army knife for you in St. Louis, and not going to make the move with you to Los Angeles. Well, actually, he was there for a year, so I take that back. But he's now in Chicago. He returned kicks, caught the football out of the backfield, ran it for you. He did everything you asked him to do, and now he's in Chicago. And Lance Kendricks at the tight end position. You got a ton of tight ends, and he was expendable. After drafting tight ends in the past two drafts, it was probably time for Lance Kendricks to find work elsewhere. So, with that being said, let's go to the schedule of the Los Angeles Rams, and let's see if we can't find them some wins. We're going to find plenty of losses, but can we find them some wins? Week 1, no Andrew Luck at the crib. Looks like we find ourselves a W right off the bat. Week 2, home for the Redskins. I think the Redskins find a way to get that one. At San Francisco on Thursday night in week number 3. I actually like the Niners in that game, believe it or not. So, I'm going to take another L there. At Dallas, no Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think that matters. Still think the Cowboys are better, and we'll find a way to win that game. At Seattle, or home for Seattle. I don't know what it is, but you guys know how to beat Seattle at home. And hell, you'll even go to Seattle and disrespect them every now and again. So you swept them 2 years ago. So I don't know how it is or why it is, but you find a way to beat them at home, generally speaking. You did it again last year. I'm going to take my chances and roll the dice with you getting it done again this year. Although one of these years, they're probably going to sweep you. This could be the year, but they'll have to go out and prove it. At Jacksonville. The Jags aren't going 0-16. The Jags also have the Jets on their schedule. But I might have given that game to the Jets just so the Jets didn't go 0-16. The Jags have to beat somebody. That's somebody. They're going to beat somebody in their own division, right? Right. Yeah, they're going to beat somebody in their division. So I'm not going to make you have to be that team that gives it up. You'll get it on the road. I could easily see them beat you. I'm going to be honest with you. I could see the Jags finding a way to get it done against you, but they're going to beat somebody in their own division. So you don't have to be the pansy and the scapegoat here. I'll let you get away with that one. Home for the Arizona Cardinals right before the bye week. What did we do here? Let's go back and check out the Cardinals. I don't remember. Oh, that's a London game. That's right. So, yeah, if that was actually a home game, I might have given it to you. But that's actually a London game, and because it's a London game, it's a neutral site game, essentially. Even though the NFL tries to dress it up as a home game, it's not, and you're going to take an L because of that. Bye week comes, and you're 3-4 at the bye week. Not bad. Not bad at all for Sean McVay and the Fighting Los Angeles Rams, but I think things are really about to go south for you now. You come off the bye week at the Giants. Not happening. That's an L. Then you are home, but it's the Texans and that ferocious defense. Now, here's the thing. That defense is really good, and they probably are going to suffocate your offense. But their offense isn't that good, and you can suffocate their offense. Whose defense is better? That's who's going to win the game. I think we know the answer to that. Texans' defense is better, so they get the job done. At the Vikings, I don't like that spot for you either. That's another loss. So you come out of the bye week after you were 3-4 at one point, and you've lost 4 straight if you count the loss in London before the bye. Home for New Orleans. That is actually a game that I think you can win. Now, I don't remember if I gave that game to New Orleans or not, but that's one of those games I can see Drew Brees struggling on the road against a defense that can get after him, make him uncomfortable. He turns it over a couple of times, and somehow, some way, you get a W against the Saints. I can see that happening. At Arizona, I got you getting swept by the Cardinals. And, oh, that's why I got you getting swept by the Cardinals, because I had I think it was Snake that said, we're not getting swept by the Cardinals. We're going to at least beat the Cardinals. Well, the problem is you don't have a home game against the Cardinals this year. That's the problem. Now, again, I recall you going to Arizona and winning before. It's possible, but I don't see it happening. Home for the Eagles. I think the Eagles find a way to get you. Even though that's a game I could see you winning. Getting to Carson Wentz, making him uncomfortable. I could see that. At Seattle, you already got him once. You're not getting him again. At Tennessee, I like the Titans, man. I like the Titans a lot. And home for the 49ers. That is a game that you will win. So, let's go ahead and tally these up, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins. So that puts the Rams at 5-11 this season. So, if I'm not mistaken, they were 4-12 last year. So I guess this is a sort of an upgrade. But it's the first year of Sean McVay. I think what you're going to find in this season is that the offense is going to be better, but the defense isn't going to be better. And it's not because of Wade Phillips, but because of the lack of talent. I think this team defensively has been gutted of a lot of talent over the last few years. Let's check the divisional mark. 0-1, 1-1, 0-2, 1-3, 1-4, 2-4 in the division. I think this team has been gutted of defensive talent over the last few years. We'll check Twitter quickly. And I think that's ultimately what's going to do them in defensively, not because Wade Phillips isn't getting the job done. It's because you just let so much of your defensive talent walk. And you didn't pay Aaron Donald yet. And he's disgruntled. Okay? So, let's get to your comments. The Cubone says, don't get me started on Donald. I know, man. I know. Trust me. You ought to be upset. Sean Mack says, I have the Rams going 4-12. I mean, I can see it happening. I got them going 5-11, but I could easily see them winning another game or two. You know, if the ball bounces their way, if Jared Goff is better than what we expect year one with Sean McVay, if this defense, and I think that's what's going to be the biggest letdown, is that, you know, this defense will flash at times, but they won't be the consistent force that they once were on the defensive side of the football, and I think that's what's going to lead to a lot of their losses. Jaden Ashford says, Josh Rosen was quoted to have said, it would be a dream come true to play for the 49ers. Do you think he could be a quarterback Shanahan would draft next, and does he fit that system? We'll see. I'm not a huge Josh Rosen fan, and after the injury, I want to see how he comes back and plays. Obviously, he's got talent, and he would fit in a Kyle Shanahan system. But we got to see what this guy is, you know. We'll see what happens with him in 2017 and if he can bounce back. Protect428 says, Rams defense, which will keep them in games, and I expect improvement from Jared Goff. Unfortunately, this young Rams team isn't ready to ascend just yet. I think you're right. Except for the defense, I don't know if the defense will keep them in a ton of games. We'll see. I'd like to think that the defense will, but I've got my reservations about this defense. The Cubone says, I'm thinking the Rams can go 7-9. It's possible. Like I said, and I want to go back and take a look at the schedule. And, yeah, I mean, they could beat the Redskins at home. They could beat the 49ers in San Francisco on a Thursday night. They could beat Houston at home. You know, they could beat Philadelphia at home. They could beat the Titans on the road. I mean, these are all winnable games. And then there's some games that I gave you that you could lose. I mean, you just never know with the schedule, obviously. But they can get to 7-9, I think. We'll see. Blackbird Blitz says, oh, my God, the Rams versus 49ers on a Thursday night. Just another reason to get rid of Thursday night games. Look, everybody's supposed to get one, man. Don't be that way, okay? You got to share. And sharing is caring, and sometimes you have to care about teams and games that you don't care about. Stop your nonsense. Cloud says, they're going 6-10. Golf has to show some progress. Yeah, that's why I think that's the ceiling for them. 6-10, 7-9. I can't see them being any better than 7-9. 6-10, is right around where I see them being, 5-11 is what I technically have them going. But I think 6-10 is where they can end up. Anywhere from 5-11 to 7-9 is where I see this team ending up. And I agree. Jared Goff has to show some improvement and progress within this offense, or else they may be looking elsewhere for a quarterback next year. Cloud says Gurley is going to have a bounce back year. The only way that's going to happen is if they can throw the football, because I still don't think there's going to be a lot of space for him to run. And I can tell you this, Sean McVay, not very creative when it comes to the run game. That's the one knock we had on him in Washington, is that the run game was extremely vanilla. And I felt like the run was just there just because. It wasn't really looking to set up anything. You may run to set up a few, shots and maybe be able to work the middle of the field by running the football. You make those linebackers, take a couple of steps up to the line of scrimmage, open up, those dig routes behind the linebackers and those seam routes for the tight end up the middle of the field. But his run game isn't the strongest, and if Goff isn't improving to the point where teams respect him, teams may still load up the box against Todd Gurley. So we'll see. It was tough to watch Todd Gurley last year struggle the way that he did, knowing he had no help and that teams were going to continue to put 8 men in the box. And it may happen again. Protect428 says, I called it 5-11, damn it. I knew it, LOL. Damon Brown says, Rams are my surprise team pick of the year at 10-6. Whoa, 10-6. Losses to Seattle, New York, Saints, Titans, Philly, and Houston. Breakout year for Goff with real receivers and a comeback of Gurley. Defense still good. We'll see. That's a bold prediction there. Snake Jr. says, even though most people don't believe this, I think the best offense we've had in last 4 years. What do you think? We have so many weapons now. I agree. I said this before we even got to the Rams and their schedule. I said, with Sean McVay, you'll have the best offense you've had at any point since Jeff Fisher took over this team. Like, it's not even going to be close. This offense is going to be light years better. The question is it going to be good enough to outscore some teams? And is this defense going to step it up, or are they going to regress? We're going to see. The Cubone says, the Rams are only going to go so far as Goff will take them, and I don't trust Goff. I get it. Hey, go ahead. Hey, Sean Mack, you stupid, man. All right. And we had a comment earlier that I said I was going to come back to in regards to the Rams and the Redskins playing each other. And do I think the Rams have a shot at beating the Redskins? Absolutely. They got a shot. And the thing about it is, Sean McVay knows the Redskins. He knows how Jay Gruden thinks from an offensive standpoint. We know Sean McVay, and we know what he likes to do. So that should benefit the Redskins as well. The difference is the Redskins have a different defensive coordinator now. And so some of the things that we like to do defensively that McVay might have been privy to may not be the same now that the Redskins have Greg Manusky as their defensive coordinator. So they're doing some different things defensively, different personnel for the Redskins. So it'll be a different look. But bottom line is McVay is excellent in what he does. The Redskins defensively are still a huge question mark. They were horrible last year on defense. And the offense hasn't looked great in the preseason, but I'm not putting too much stock into it. Bottom line is the Redskins can absolutely go to Los Angeles and lose in week 2. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm actually very nervous about that game, but then again, I'm a Redskins fan. I'm nervous about every single game. Don't matter who we play. When we played Cleveland last year, that might have been the scariest game of the season, and we should have lost that game, but luckily it was the Browns. My fault, Sean Mack. But in any event, it is what it is, man. We'll see what happens. That's why they play the games. So, with that being said, let's get to the final team in this division. A team that I expect to be vastly improved from their 2-14 mark a season ago, of course. Talking about the San Francisco 49ers, and I was basically spot on with this prediction last year, but I'm not going to pat myself on the back. We all knew the 49ers were going to be garbage last year. So there's no need in celebrating what was the obvious. I told you I thought they were one of the least talented teams in all of football last year, and it wasn't even close. The talent level and discrepancy with that team and the rest of the league was huge. There was a huge talent gap, and I think they filled that gap tremendously. And I think a lot of that was expedited by the hiring of Lynch and Shanahan, which we'll get to in a second. But first, I predicted 2-14, 1-5 in the division. They were 2-14, 2-4 in the division. So both of their wins came in the division last year, and all 14 of their losses came either in the division or outside of the division. So 10 of the 14 losses came outside of the division. So this is a team that they struggled. And anytime you're starting week one with Blaine Gabbert as your quarterback, you're asking for trouble. I mean, we saw what was to come for them, and the writing was on the wall. And the season played out exactly as most of us predicted. As for this upcoming season, though, I think the 49ers are going to be vastly improved. You know how I feel about Kyle Shanahan. If you watched me on Sunday night when I did the Minnesota Vikings, San Francisco 49ers game, I told you how I felt about Kyle Shanahan. I think he's one of the best offensive coordinators in all of football. He's now a head coach. He's going to call his own plays. I think he's going to be magnificent at that. He's going to get the most out of his players. You saw what Billy Ho did to the Vikings defensively the first two drives. They went right down the field, made it look easy. Carlos Hyde is being utilized the way that I think he needs to be used, as a guy that can not only run it and hurt you, but catch it out of the backfield and hurt you as well. They got talent on that football team. Pierre Garçon makes a difference. And they like George Kittle. I like George Kittle. They got some stuff. Marquise Goodwin is going to stretch the football field. He's going to get vertical. They've got enough stuff to hurt you out there. And they got a shot to really scare some teams and to win some ball games. And I think it starts with the two biggest offseason acquisitions, GM John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan. For the first time in a long time, I think Jed York is going to actually sit his ass down and let real football guys handle football business. And you haven't been able to say that in San Francisco since the end of the Harbaugh tenure, which is why they've struggled since then. And so I think Lynch and Shanahan have come in. They've cleaned house. That's why you see a lot of key losses, but you also see a lot of acquisitions because they're turning this roster over. I said it wasn't very talented last year. They had some talent. And I think what Shanahan and Lynch did is they evaluated and identified the guys that they do deem to be talented, kept them around, got rid of the dead weight, and then they went out and got guys that they think fit to what they want to do moving forward. And so you get Matt Barkley and Brian Hoyer. Remember, they stripped this entire roster of all its quarterbacks last year. They got rid of all the quarterbacks on the roster and started from ground zero with that position. They go out and get Barkley, who I'm not a huge fan of, and Brian Hoyer. And Hoyer's going to start. And like I said, with Billy Ho, the question with him is just health. When Billy Ho's healthy and he's on, he's dangerous. When Billy Ho isn't on, he's dangerous. That's why you got to love Billy Ho, because either way, Billy Ho's going to be dangerous. Like we saw against the Vikings in the third preseason game, he was on, he was dangerous. Like we saw in the playoff game when he was in the Houston Texans, he was off, he was dangerous to the tune of like 4 or 5 interceptions. Either way, something's going to happen with Billy Ho in the game, and that's why I love him. Wide receivers Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin come in, and right away they infuse this team with talent and speed. And that's something you can't account for. Goodwin is a track athlete and a guy that can flat out run. We saw that against the Vikings in the third preseason game, and that's what he's going to bring to the offense. Kyle loves to stretch you out, run, then go play action fake. You suck up for the run, and your corner's eyes get trapped in the backfield, and next thing you know, you got a guy that's running 4.27 running right by you, and you can't catch up, and it's a touchdown. Kyle Juszczyk coming over from the Ravens. This guy is a Swiss Army knife. You can hand it to him. You can throw it to him. He can be a lead blocker. He does a little bit of everything. I love him, and Kyle loves him, and I think he's going to be a nice little piece for you in San Francisco. Capri Bibbs is a guy you traded for during the draft from Denver. I don't know how he fits into the equation at the running back position. You got a ton of running backs, and I don't know if he fits or not. We'll see. Defensive tackle Earl Mitchell is starting up front For how long, I don't know, but he's a guy that's definitely going to be in the rotation, whether he's starting or not. Offensive lineman Gary Gilliam, you get him from Seattle, so you weaken a divisional opponent, strengthen your team at the same time. Double whammy there. Linebacker Malcolm Smith already lost for the season, so he could have easily been under the key losses as you go out and get him from the Raiders, but he's not going to play in 2017. And place kicker Robbie Gould, a solid kicker. You lose Phil Dawson, you need to replace him. And so you lose a veteran, you gain another veteran at the field goal kicking position. Key losses, Tremaine Brock and Antoine Bethea, both gone off this roster. One gone to Seattle and Brock, the other gone to Arizona in Bethea, which means both of these guys are still in the division. Sean Drawn was probably your best back last year, which, again, is a problem in itself. Wide receivers Torrey Smith and Quentin Patton are gone. Neither of them really panned out in San Francisco, and Smith was a huge disappointment. Offensive lineman Marcus Martin was a guy you drafted out of USC, and he never really manifested himself to anything of real note in San Francisco. Quarterbacks Colin Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert. As we all know, the whole controversy with Kaepernick, and Gabbert is now in Arizona. So a lot of these players that are no longer on your roster still in the division. And Phil Dawson, he's no longer on your team. He also is in the division with the Arizona Cardinals. And Vance McDonald was just traded a few days ago to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a guy that they were trying to get rid of desperately during the offseason. It didn't work out then, but it's worked out now, and they got their wish. They love George Kittle, and they are going to start George Kittle, and I think they were able to make room for him with the trade of Vance McDonald. So that's what you call turning over a roster. What I just basically said to you is this is a brand new team, and it needed to be. And I love what they've done along the defensive line. I think that's why this team has a shot, because they've drafted defensive line over the last 3 years or so. They've got talent now, and they've got some guys in that secondary that they've been amassing talent with Rashard Robinson, and I love Kilo Witherspoon and some of the other guys that they have out there at the cornerback position. And, you know, they got Jimmy Ward, and they got Eric Reed at safety, and they got talent, man, on defense. The question that I have for them is, offensively, can they get it done? Offensively, will they get it done? Will they be consistent on offense? And just how good is this defense? And we're going to find out with their new defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, taking over from Seattle. So this is a really intriguing football team. I'll be watching the 49ers very closely because I'm a huge fan of what Lynch and Shanahan have done coming in and really revamping this 49ers roster. Let's get to their schedule, though. We know it's not going to happen overnight, obviously. And you start week 1, home for the Panthers. I remember when that used to be a classic showdown. Boy, do I long for the days of Carolina and San Francisco 13-10, knockdown, drag out, slobber knockers. Those days are dead, and the Panthers are going to win that game. At Seattle the following week, I think you meet the same fate as you met in week 1, another loss. And then you get to the Rams at home. And that's a Thursday night game, and that's a game that I think you should win for your first win of the season with Kyle Shanahan. Sunday, October 1st, week 4 at Arizona. No dice there. So you can get another loss. Indy, you're at Indy. Andrew Luck should be back by then. Andrew Luck should be fully capable of winning games by then. He should have knocked off the rust by then. Translation, you should lose that game then. At Washington, week number 6. If the Redskins lose that game, then the Redskins are going to have a pretty bad season. So we'll see what happens there. Home for the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, you should have beat Dallas last year. You should have beat Dallas. And let's see. Ezekiel Elliott will still be out because they have a bye week. It doesn't matter. They're still going to beat you. What am I saying? All right. At Philadelphia. You can beat the Eagles. You can. But I'm not gonna give you that game. You're gonna have to go and take it. Just remember, Billy Ho is still your quarterback. Okay? Let's keep that in mind too. Like, don't get caught up in what you've seen in the preseason. You should be encouraged by what you saw in the preseason, but don't go overboard. Okay? This is still a work in progress. First year, first time head coach. Don't go overboard and think you're gonna win like 6 or 7 games. Relax. Home for Arizona. I actually think you can win that game, didn't I? I think I gave you that one. Let's go back and double check. Yep, I gave you that one. I don't think you can win that game. I don't think that's far-fetched to say that you can get Arizona once at the Crizzo. Home for the Giants. I remember when that used to be a big game. Giants should be able to go there and win. You can beat the Giants, though. Just got to get pressure on Eli. They can't run the ball. Get pressure on Eli, you can win that game. But, again, I'm not going to give it to you. Home for Seattle. Seattle is going to sweep you. I believe that's what we did there, but I just want to double check. And, yes, they are going to, in fact, sweep you, and I believe that to be the case. So, we will hand you another Elski. At Chicago, I gave the Bears a win there. They beat you in Chicago last year. I think they can do it again. I think you can win that game too. Like, that's a game that, you know, if you twisted my arm and said, hey, you got to get the 49ers another win or two, that might be it right there. At Houston, another loss. Home for Tennessee. Home for Jacksonville. You're going to beat Jacksonville at home. At the Rams, I'm pretty sure I have the Rams winning that game. I don't even need to look, but I'm going to look anyway. Yeah. So, that's a loss. But this Titans game is intriguing because, you know, I love the Titans this year. I think they're going to be a good football team. But I think they're prone to a letdown game on the road against a team that they have no business losing to. And I think this could be it right here. For as many games I think they're going to win that people probably are going to disagree with me on, this strikes me as a game that I think they could actually lose. In San Francisco, late in the season, 49ers playing for pride. Give the Niners that game. Don't ask me why. Don't question me. Oh, you're crazy. They're not going to beat Tennessee. That's why you got to love the National Football League, because you never know what the hell's going to happen. And I think the Titans got a letdown game in them right there. I got them beating some really good teams this year, and then they're going to just lay an egg, just a massive stinker, just be funky in Week 15, and the 49ers are going to jump up and bite them. And that gets them to 4 wins, 4-12 for the Niners, so a 2-game improvement from last year's abomination. And in the division, you go 0-1, 0-2, 1-2, 1-3. Okay, I missed a game. 0-1, 1-1. That's the one I missed. 0-1, 1-1, 1-2, 2-2, 2-3, 2-4 in the division. So let's get my handy dandy notebook and write down the 49ers as a 4-12 football team, 2-4 in the division. So I'll pull up Twitter quickly. Why? I don't know. There's nothing there. But I will do it anyway. And then we will get to some of your comments. All right, I think we found a good spot. Here, Sean Mack says, "Are the 49ers going 4-12?" We've been on the same page pretty much tonight, Sean Mack. I got them going 4-12 as well. Protect 428 says, "The Rams, let's smash those fools." Protect is obviously a Redskins fan. Sean Mack says, "LOL, it's all good, bro. We stunk." I knew you wouldn't take offense to it. Dark Sealer 1995 says, "I love this defense, and I think this organization is on the right track. They're building up the picks to get that quarterback in the upcoming draft." I think so too. And with them going 4-12, I think they'll be in a great position to get a quarterback in the upcoming draft. So we'll see. See what happens. The Cubone says, "God damn, man. I remember when the 49ers were the team everyone wanted to be. Now they've had their fourth head coach in 4 years. I love the hire of Shanahan, and I think they could be 6-10. It's possible. There's some games in there that they could definitely win. And you can say that about any team with the exception of the Jags and the Jets, that any team you could add a game or two to their win total. So I say that because I think they got some talent on defense. So we'll see what happens. Protect 428 says, "F Kyle for stealing Pierre from us. Billy Ho is a hoe, and though they are going to be improved, I don't trust Billy Ho, and I think the 2018-2019 will be their time, to be honest, bro." We'll see. I mean, even the 2018 season means you're going to probably see a young guy have to get in there at quarterback. Even if Billy Ho is still starting, he's just a stopgap at that point for whomever they draft. Or if they go get Kirk Cousins, then 2018-2019 would definitely be their season if they go and get Kirk. Cloud says, "This team is going to stink." I mean, they stunk last year, so they can only get better unless they go 1-15. I don't think that this isn't a 1-15 team. They're going to get better. So we'll see. Sean Mack says, "Hoyer took my Browns to a 7-4 record. He works well with Kyle. If it wasn't for the rough schedule, I'd give them more wins." I'd agree with you there. They got a really tough schedule, some tough road games. I think that's part of the reason they go 4-12. Damon Brown says, 49ers to the back of the bus with an 0-16 record. Only team less talented than them is the Jets, but they don't get to play them. Congrats on the number 1 or number 2 overall pick. There's no way they're going 0-16. This team is not that bad talent-wise like they were last year. They're going to win some games. They're going to win games in their own division, nonetheless, just like they did last year when they were horrible. Cloud says, "The Niners can't possibly beat us. If they beat us, someone needs to be fired." I don't feel that way about my team, but I feel like we need to beat them. And that's how you feel about your team, needing to beat them. Snake Jr. says, "God, the Niners suck, but for some damn reason they beat us all the time. Like both their wins were against the Rams last year. Damn." I remember the opening game of the season last year when they blanked the Rams, and everybody was in shock. I knew 49ers fans that didn't see that coming. I knew Rams fans who were like, "What the hell, man?" And I remember I went on an epic rant after that game last year because I can't stand Jeff Fisher. And I went on an epic rant after that game, and it was brutal, man. And yeah, like you said, for some reason they find a way to beat the Rams, and to sweep them last year and get your only 2 wins against the same team, that's rough. Protect428 says, Niners going 4-12, 3-13. Like the Rams, they need some work before becoming a good team. The Nintendo guy says, you have us going 4-12, but we could go beyond that. Yeah, you can definitely go. You're anywhere from 4-12 to 6-10 in my book. I don't see you being better than 6-10 because you just got a brutal schedule. But I can see you high end. You have a great season. Things are really looking up. You go 6-10. If you just do what you're supposed to do, I think you're 4-12 at worst. Damon Brown says, Bills trying to tank, but it's going to fail because the Jets and the Niners are going to be much worse. Dark Sealer 1995 says, I laughed during the draft when they fleeced the Bears, LOL. Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. And you should thank the Bears for Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. You thank the rest of the league for Reuben Foster, and he looks like a beast. Snake Jr. says, good-ish, man. Good shit. I'm out, Louie. Stay blessed, brother. Peace. Hey, I appreciate you joining me, man. Thanks a lot. And I want to thank everybody else for joining me as well, as that's basically going to wrap up this stream. Quickly want to give you an overview of what we talked about tonight. Record-wise, this is what I have. Seattle, 11-5, 5-1 in the division, winning the NFC West yet again for the second year in a row. I don't think it's 3 years in a row. It's 2 years in a row. I believe that is the case. In any event, Arizona, 8-8, 3-3 in the division. No playoffs. Los Angeles Rams, 5-11, 2-4 in the division. And 49ers, 4-12, 2-4 in the division. So that's going to do it for the NFC West. Thank you for joining me on this program. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here. The Louie Tee Network. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Got one more division to break down, one more live stream for the night. That is the AFC South. Hopefully some of you will be returning and joining me for that. If not, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the college football. It's going to be a hell of a week to get it started. And we'll reconvene next week as we get ready for the start of the 2017 National Football League season. I'm your man, Louie Tee. Signing off. See you a little bit later. Have a go.